this is Darren, and I actually just recorded a 47-minute video for scripting tutorials for dummies, and then Open Broadcaster crashed, and apparently recording an MP4 does that, and when it crashes, you then lose everything. So this will probably be short and sweet, since I didn't have any setup on the other one. I actually went through step by step. I'm going to try to be as in-depth as I can be for some shit, so... Alright, I figured I'd do some scripting basics for people, which, 49 minutes seems a bit long, but we created a spell and I created some other crap. So, basically, the first thing we did, the first thing to realize about scripting is that everything relies on a property. Basically, what I did the first time was I made a box that when the player entered it, all these little X markers out here would shoot fireballs at you. I'm actually going to use something like that in this volcano level to basically just do fire traps all over the place because it looks really awesome. So, first thing you got to realize is that a property just points at crap. So once you've added a script to something, which I hope you can get around by yourself without me showing you how to do it, but look, there's an add button. New script. Name your script. Every script needs properties. Properties just point at crap. When you click add a property, you'll notice there's a drop down box, and the creation kit actually is kind of easy and nice when it comes to this, I think, just letting you be able to select things. But the most common ones are actor and object reference. Object reference can point at an actor, but some scripts that modify actors can't modify an object reference, obviously. So you can use them either or. Usually just actor pointed actor, object reference pointed object reference, which is just an object. Excuse me. And I didn't have like burping or hiccup problems through the whole first video that crashed. I hate this freaking computer. So the first thing I did was I made an actor reference and I named it player ref, which will always point at you, the player. The next thing I did was I made 3 boxes, box 1, box 2, box 3, which are the 3 X marker headings. And you can actually hit pick reference in reference window and you can actually select these and it'll put that in there. Scripts will not fire based on anything but properties and the verbs, which are basically what that part of script is going to do. In our situation, we added a fireball spell, which we just added a property, went to spell, and then we called it fireball, which auto-filled because there is a spell called fireball. You could also make it tons of other crap in here too: firestorm, firebolt. Fireball just looks really cool in there, so I'm gonna leave it as fireball. When you go into the script and you edit the source, you'll have all the properties arrayed how you added them. Like I added this one after I added the script. That's pretty much just, it doesn't matter where your object reference properties, your spell properties, as long as they're in your script. And I'm going to open the Papyrus scripting reference page again. I really should bookmark this at some point, but I'm never going to because I just type it in there. Okay, and the cool thing about this one is you've got the events, and there's tons and tons and tons of events. Each one of these will, do whatever. Examples on sit. The furniture the actor just sat on. All the events is what calls the script to happen. On open, on package start, these are how you call a script. Unless the script is inside of a dialogue view or inside of a scene, and those automatically fire them at certain points. So basically, excuse me, we did an event on trigger enter. Object reference, that's what's being entered, aka action ref, that's who's entering. And we put a descriptor: if action ref equals, which means it has to equal the player, i.e. this condition ensures only the player would trigger this code. We also put another if underneath it, which usually isn't added. We added an int property, which basically always starts at 0. It's just a number that counts inside of the script itself. We also did if trig count equals 0. So the game's going to check for the first one first, and if you have multiple ifs. And then it'll check this one. So if it's not the player that enters, it's just going to invalidate the rest. Nothing else under it's going to go on. It just logically fires straight down the list. If the trig count equals 0, which means the player's never entered it, the first thing we're doing is doing trig count plus equals 1. We're basically just adding 1 to whatever it was. So these two ifs have to be met, then to fire this. At the bottom, something we could also do that I did explain in the other video too, that never happened, is we can do else if. And in this one, we can do else if trig count equals 1, because we added 1 to it. So the next time they enter, that trigger count is going to equal 1. So that means the first time I enter, all this is going to happen, which we'll explain in a second. The second time I enter, we can make different things happen, and we can just add this line again, which will then make the trigger count equal 2. So R you could actually do minus equal 1, and it'll reset it, so the third time you enter, it'll be back at 0, and you'll have it continually looping. Basically, all we did in here is fireball is our spell. It's our spell property, and you can look these up on the scripting reference page. They have a lot of them in here. I just Control F cast. You can actually look up, spells or different types of scripts. Like they'll actually have actor scripts, and then you can look down all the different scripts that will actually apply to actors. So you've got that to look for. But the cast one is easy. Oops. The cast one is easy. It's basically the spell name, cast, who it's casting from, who it's casting at. These can obviously be anything, but this can be an object reference or an actor, and this can be an object reference or as an actor too. You can actually force actors to fire spells with this, and the game will treat it as if that whoever's in this spot actually cast the spell. And it will cast it based on perks too. So if you force the player to cast a spell, it'll cast Fireball based on their perks. So all we're doing with this one is Fireball cast from box 1 at the player. The utility weight 1 is just to add some dynamic to it, because every time it fires, it's going to look at where I am when the Fireball fires and fire it at me, which is going to make these traps really fun if people aren't moving. So I'm going to do it when they're running across like lava rocks. So that's all I did. I just reset it, 1, next one fires, 1, next one fires, 1, next one fires. I don't know why there's 2 utility weight ones here, but that's cool. Okay. So utility weight is just number of seconds, and then in 1.0 you can actually do it in decimals too. You can make it wait as little or long as you want, from 1/10 of a second up to, I've done up to 20 minutes, and the game fires it off pretty reliably. So we're going to save that one. Build compile will show you if you screwed something up. Assembly successful. Now say you forgot a parentheses in here, and you hit compile. It'll say missing, ripper in, blah blah, and it'll tell you the line 27, which down here you can see I'm at line 27 out of 37 total. And a lot of these get confusing, and you probably make a lot of mistakes. I still do. I still screw things up and misspell them. So now we basically have a trigger box that detects when you enter and then fires fireballs at you. So technically a trap trigger box. You could even assign something like this to a tripwire. So you could create your own custom traps. Like the tripwires have basic scripts attached to them that trigger when it happens. You just mimic whatever event they have. Event whenever it's tripped, and then you fill all this in underneath it, and you would have all these point the properties at the boxes, and the boxes will fire fireballs at you. And always hit save afterwards. Compiling does not save it. However, saving does compile it. So I don't know why I use the compile. So yeah, always double check. Make sure your properties are filled. This was one I actually used in the other video to show that I'll show that real quick actually. So I'm going to pull a freaking chicken out. So we've got a chicken, right? This is another cool thing about the properties. I've got an actor called Roberto776, and I did this with a monster the first time, but the reference ID has to be unique per mod. So if I name this for chicken Roberto776, I can never name anybody else that. But that's the reference ID. That's something for you. Making the mod. So now if I go back to my box and back to my script and hit properties and hit autofill, it'll autofill Roberto776. Just like the same way if I cleared player ref and I hit autofill, it'll autofill the player ref because you're called the player ref to the game engine. So you can do that with everything. You can do that with my boxes. I could have named my boxes box 1, 2, 3, and then hit autofill. So that's a little handy there. We're going to save, which takes forever because the Discworld M1 ESP is 18 megabytes. I'm actually building these inside my game engine because I figured if I'm going to be doing these tutorials, I might as well do things for my stupid engine or for my ESP to have fun with. Sorry if I'm a little bit disjointed. This is 2.5 hours after I did the other one. I tried that long to repair a 49-minute video. I should have just recorded it again. So yeah, then we'll go in game and we'll fire this thing off. If it ever saves. I'm not a fan of editing, so you get to sit here and wait for me talking. But yeah, I'm recording an FLV, so I hope the video quality is actually pretty decent. I like the MP4 because it's just easier to upload to YouTube and crap. I'll also show you on while we're in here what I'm going to do next, or show you how I set up next. I actually created a spell. And the spell looks overly retarded when you look at it, but it was actually simple. I mean, this is just to get you realizing that scripting isn't that freaking hard. I mean, everybody makes it out to be a nightmare. Some people want to do too much with it. I mean, I got messaged by a guy who wanted to make the character into another person, which basically created them as that person. They had access to the inventory, and then when they stopped wanting to be that person would go back to being whatever you changed them to. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to kill myself, you know, scripting. But it's still possible. You could do it. It's just, you know, if you get your point to that, where it's going to be a nightmare, it's going to be a nightmare. You know, the crazier you get, you know, you can do things, but trying to do things simpler is always the best shot. COC to 0. Okay. Oops. I forgot to get rid of the chicken. You can see my Balrog back there too. It's like way back there. Anyway, so our trigger box was somewhere in here, and it's going to fire a crap ton of fireballs at me. Watch. And that one hit something. Dodge! Dude, fireballs look so wicked with his image face. So yeah, that happened. And yeah, I mean, if you turned the, you know, now if I re-enter it, nothing happens because we had the, you know, if the int equals 0, blah blah blah. So yeah, it won't fire again at me. Now the other thing we added, which at this moment really only works in outdoors, so I'm just going to load the save I already had, my clean save. I actually created a spell, which I don't know why I like dealing with chickens, but it basically rains chickens that when they hit the ground and die, they explode. So 0, 2, 0, A4, 2, E1. Cluck from above. I didn't really change much of the magic shit from, but flaming chickens will bring death from above. This is like the most useless spell ever, but it's kind of funny. So, meow. Oh crap, one of them fell behind me. They don't like going where they're told. The hell? I like making random chicken death spells. I don't know why. Shit's funny. Oh crap. It's supposed to drop 6 chickens, but it's like it's kind of acting up right now. But like one of them just standing up there. Don't ask. I don't know. Anyway, I find it funny. I don't know why I like dropping chickens. Bloody hell. Yeah, this spell's totally working as intended. This is probably the most dangerous spell to have on you. You're just gonna get insta-killed by your own freaking chickens. And then they just chill the F out down here with you, like all huge and shit. Anyway, so let's show how I kind of did that, not very successfully. We created a magic effect. Actually, just copied oak flesh basically. There's two parts to a spell. There's the spell, and then there's the magic effect. The spell is what the game calls to fire it. The magic effect is what actually happens. Most magic effects in the game are simple, holding crap, throwing bolts, or the flames, constant effect in front of you. To get something crazy like that, you have to script it. And what I basically did was I created three chickens, called them Cluck from Above 1, 2, and 7. And don't ask why it's a 7, I have no idea. Fuck, this shit is an int property I had to add after while I was testing it after I crashed. Player ref and push marker, I'm actually accelerating the chickens down a little bit. Excuse me. And spell 1 is actually the spell I was going to use. I put a cooldown on it using a global variable. So we'll get into all those real quick. The source looks a little bit retarded because I didn't realize something and I had some fun with it. So basically, I created a cell and I put my three chickens in the cell. So my three chickens are sitting here. The first thing I realized was I want the chickens to explode when they die. So I added a script to the chickens, which is basically an event on dying. Actor AK killer, you can actually define whoever killed it as AK killer, which is nobody, it's gravity at this point. I added a spell property, which is fireball, and an object reference, which is TP, and the actor property, which is Cluck from Above, which is himself. He's named Cluck from Above 001. And what I did was, when he dies, the fireball cast at him, or from him at himself. Then 2 seconds later, he moves to Cluck from Above, moves to TP1. And you can find all these functions inside of that Papyrus reference. Look that on that wiki, it is a godsend. There's not a day that goes by that I don't reference it in some way or another. The utility waits are just to give things time to happen. You gotta give him time to fall, or you gotta, once he hits the ground and dies, you gotta give him, a second to actually die and then cast the spell. And then I move him back into that cell that he was in, which that TP is actually pointing toward this marker right here. So I move him out of the player's field of view. I wait 1 second and I resurrect him. And what happens is then he just gets resurrected, so every time you recast the spell, he's back to being alive, and he falls and dies, blows up, gets moved here, and it's just a rinse and repeat. And I did that to each of the chickens. Each chicken has their own script, because it's, you can't, how to explain this? When, say the actor reference, right? If I wanted to select this chicken, I can't, because he's open. And you cannot select, something that the script is attached to. You can, however, name him the exact same thing as his name is and autofill it. Or you can pick the cell he's in and then pick who he is. You just can't auto-select him. So it's easier to add 3 separate scripts and just name them correctly for the purpose of this demonstration. You could do one script, copy it to all 3 of them, and then select the cell they're in if you wanted to. The drop-down menus are great. The pick reference in render window is great for this. You can point it at actors. You can, select all the different spells. I kind of probably glossed over that at the first part of this because I did go in detail in the other video. All you got to realize is that still properties just point at crap. You cannot do anything inside of a script without properties. It's usually property, verb, property. Or property, verb, property, property. Or property, verb, verb, property, property. But it's always properties and verbs. You don't, and there's some other definitions like you'll see in the other one, like X marker, X headings, Y headings, that kind of crap. But as far as the basics go, you need properties. Properties just point at things in the environment, and you can name them whatever you want. Now back to the script for the spell. This looks like a convoluted pile of garbage. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Thing that I didn't realize is when you move an actor, because see what I was trying to do was move the chicken in, and what this does is it moves to, and generally if you would just cut off the rest of this, what the move to does is it just moves it exactly where this is, and that means they would move the chickens right on top of me. There's no death going on. Doing this part of it basically moves it to player ref, and this first whole section in between the commas is the X offset, this is the Y offset, and this is the Z offset. This is basically just some fancy math for in front of the player. The 520 times math sine player ref dot get angle Z, 520 times math cosine player ref get angle Z. This is even on the wiki. This basically just creates a sine cosine wave based off your angle. They intersect both at 520 out, and so 520 units in the game in front of the player is where it'll put the chicken. This one's a little easier. Player ref get height plus 660. I'm just throwing the chicken up in the air 660. Oh, this is the push marker. Same process anyway. So I'm putting it up in the air 660 units above the player. I'm actually putting the chicken 550 units above the player. Something I'm actually going to change in here is I'm going to make this one weight 0.2. What I didn't realize is when you move an actor, I did know it, I just forgot it. It's when you move an actor from one cell to another cell and they become loaded, they instantly land on the ground. Oops, no, that's correct. They instantly land on the ground. So I was trying to put the chickens, 660 units in the air. The game engine instantly rendered them on ground level. So what I did was I moved the chicken 520 behind the player by putting a negative in front, and only 50 units, which I shouldn't have done. I should have done like 0, but still. And that way the chicken moved in and was loaded, and 0.2 seconds later I chucked the chicken 660 units in there, or 550 units in the air. That's just a little bit of workaround. It's probably a little complicated, but basically I was just trying to move the chicken in front of the player and way the frick up in the air. It falls to its death. It blows up, because when it dies, it'll fire off its on death scene. This one was just to make me accelerate them, which I actually am just going to take this out of the script because it made them die slower, which was really weird. I was basically making a push marker and pushing the actor away at 10 force, which is weaker than a Fus Roda, or just a Fus, but it was kind of screwing up their death, so I'm just going to remove it. And I just repeated this. I put the utility weights in. I dropped all 3 chickens twice during the spell, and that was it. That's really all there was to that stupid script. Now what I did do up here is something a little more fun. I did an fuck, this shit is just so sorry. We called that we created an int property. I copy from a lot of my other scripts when I'm doing some of this crap, and we named it fuck this shit when we were trying to figure it out. We created a global variable property, which is gv1, and global variables are basically just numbers. You can make the global variable, they're under miscellaneous and global, and this should be cluck. There we go. So you just created this. I made it a float. I named it what I wanted, and it starts at 0. All it does is record numbers. Literally all it does. It just records numbers, and you can just set the numbers however you want, whenever you want. So what I did in here is, the problem is you can't use an if to call on a global variable, at least as far as I've been able to see. So what I did here was I created an int property, which is just a number inside of a script. The int property, fuck this shit, and that always starts at 0 as well. When we called upon this right here and I put fuck this shit equals gv1.getValueInt, what it's doing is it's basically setting this int property to whatever the global variable is, and since the global variable starts at 0, it sets this to 0. So the next part I called on was if fuck this shit equals 0, and then we fire off the spell. And this is a way of adding a cooldown to the spell. Even though the player can keep casting the spell, they're not going to get anything back from it until the spell completes, because I did gv1.setValueInt1. What that's doing is it's changing that global variable, which is this long ass one up here, 0disc cluck remove something from above variable. It's turning it from 0 to 1. The next time the player casts the spell, this is going to be set to this, which we just set to 1, which means that if fuck this shit equals 0 is equal to, basically it just means equal just means it has to be equal to this number, which it doesn't, so nothing fires. And so at the end of the script, I did 5 seconds after the last chicken basically falls. 5 seconds later, I did GV1 and I set the value back to 0. So 5 seconds after the last chicken falls to its death, the player can reuse the spell. I think I did forget to do this event on effect start thing. When you add a script, I basically use Oak Flesh, and you should build compile this. I use Oak Flesh just because I don't know, just find it funny. You can set a lot of things up in spells, which is a whole nother thing. But basically, all I did with the spell was change the script. I removed the script. I added my own custom script, and the spell only lasts for 1 second. When you go into the spells, magic spells. Did I not name this one Cluck? No, I didn't. Okay. When you go into the spells, you can define how long it lasts for. The duration is 1 second, because that's all you need. The script is doing an on effect start. You can also set the spell cost. I tried to set it to 0 because the game doesn't think this spell is doing anything, because this spell technically isn't doing anything as far as the game engine is concerned. Should probably get into spells another time, but it's I'm just trying to go over the scripting part. Did I name this one chicken too? Screw me. Okay, because this spell isn't doing any damage. It's a fire and forget on self. It's just basically adding. It's doing the effect of adding armor to yourself for 1 second, like associated armor 2, magic armor spell, damage resist. I could remove these. It doesn't really matter. It only adds your armor and magic resist for 1 second. And this script is basically doing event on effect start. All this after here is necessary when you look at the events in that Papyrus reference. You do need these. It's just letting you call things like actor, AK caster. So I could actually define stuff in here, like instead of saying move to player ref, I actually could have said move to AK caster. And the game would realize that you're the one who cast the spell. And so you could, by doing that, is actually the smart move. I'm sorry. This is, if you give an NPC this spell, they will use it. You make it a destruction spell, and they'll use it like they're trying to cast a destruction spell. So if you change this to AK caster, which I'm going to do down the entire line. I'm not going to take the time to actually give it to an NPC to use. But if I did AK caster down the entire line, it will then allow NPCs to cast this spell, because the game will recognize whoever casted it, and they'll move the chickens in front of that person and, dropping to their deaths. The AK target is a little more. It's basically whoever's under the cursor, but it's a little finicky. So use at your own risk. So anyway, that's really about it for scripting. The biggest thing to realize is it all looks like gobbledygook, and you're sitting there going, "Bleh," and there's a lot that makes me want to shoot myself in some people's scripts, because it can get massively more complex than this, but this isn't too bad. I mean, it's basically just you do this, and you go here, and you cast this on him. But they all just have to be properties, which a lot of people screw up and can't figure out the whole property thing, and then they pull their hair out and want to kill themselves. So there you go. I finished that in 28 minutes as opposed to 49. But like I said, any questions or whatever, my email's there. You can post a comment. I mean, you're still obviously going to have questions. But like I said, that Papyrus reference, dude. This scripting reference page, the 2 pages for this, and all the extra pages are just amazing. There's even references to SKSE and telling you how to use SKSE. I don't personally, I never have. I won't slave my mods to it, so I have no idea. Like, I know kind of what it's capable of. I've never actually looked at it. There's no need for me to. But just like the get is functions are the conditions in the dialog boxes, this is even worse. There's more crap, on served time, on story script. Get sun position. Like, really? Okay. Uh, like, literally, you can do whatever you want. You can get the weight of somebody. You can, I mean, come on. I. You can force somebody to draw their weapon. You can open doors with the door scripts. I mean, you can disable fast travel. You can enable fast travel. equip slots, equip spells, has perk. These are just checks like that, if so and so has perk. Play sounds. I mean, there's just so much stuff you can do, and there's the big ones too, like quest scripts. It'll tell you all the different scripts associated with a quest. Then it'll tell you the SKSE functions if you. But figuring out how to, if you're watching this tutorial and you need to, you want to do SKSE, you should probably learn some of this crap first, because you got to do a whole other thing to add SKSE functions in and shit. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's our reset quest we called the one time in the last video. But there's so many freaking things you can do. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can even force load games. You can force save games and load games. You can instantly shut people's games down. I did that in my first mod ever because I didn't know how to turn God mode off, which is really easy. It's just toggle God mode or something. I think it's like turn God mode set off or something. But there you go. I'll stop rambling for this shit. But there you go. The next video, which I was planning on doing tonight until everything went to hell in this crap, I will actually do quests, and I will build a quest tomorrow at some point if I can keep the house cool enough, because it's 85 degrees. It's 2:50 a.m. and it's 85 degrees. Like, am I in freaking Iraq? But actually, it'd be like 95 degrees. Um, yeah, that's it. And you saw the spell already. It's just a little bit more refined now. I can't really think of anything else for this scripting. The biggest thing about it is just to be comfortable with it. You're gonna fuck up. You're gonna get compile errors. I mean, just always go back to that wiki. Look how they have it set up. Don't miss a comma. Don't miss a parentheses. Don't miss anything, and you'll miss them. You'll type something wrong. You'll miss a period. I hit comma all the time instead of period because I fat finger it. Um, the compilation errors can be caused by anything, and then errors in the game could be you foobarred a property, didn't fill it. There's a lot of things that you just get better with at time, and trial and error, and wanting to bash your head into a wall. I mean, that's the CK in general. If you're not willing to bash your head into a wall and you've gotten this far listening to me, quit. I probably should have started out with that. If you're not willing to put in the time, I mean, it took me hundreds and hundreds of hours to do my first big mod, which was my first mod, and then I got faster from there. I mean, the Dragon Break mods took me a couple of weeks a pop, and we've been working on Discworld since the middle of January. We got 20 hours of content so far, but it's July. So it takes forever, and there's been plenty of times where I've spent 2 or 3 days bug testing a quest, a 40-minute quest that have taken me a couple of days. And I mean, I obviously take massive breaks in between the bug tests, or I'd go crazy. But I mean, one of them legit I think took nine hours of bug testing and replaying and replaying and replaying. So if you're not willing to tough out that time for what you want to do, don't do it. It's not worth it. If you're gonna get stressed out and hate it and quit, it's not worth it. I mean, I'm telling you right now, whatever you want to do is not easy in this engine, and it's gonna take some time, especially if you're new at it. Some people are more gifted than others. That's a given, but even people that are extremely gifted are still going to be smashing their head into roadblocks, and people who have been at this for years are still learning. I mean, I was learning stuff from a guy I helped the other day, so I think it's the best bit of advice I can give if you're even still listening to this crap at this point of me rambling is tough it out, deal with it. You're going to want to just get a punching bag for the first few weeks of learning this, and it does get easier. You still get just as frustrated years in, but it gets easier, and you're better at finding out what you effed up. So, yep, that's all I got. All stuff.